Morning all. Hello, morning. Hi Mel, how are you? Hi Heather. I have a question for you, Heather. Hi Jane. You ordered 2 mini tulip jigsaws and we've only got one left. I'm sorry. Would you like a refund for the second one, or would you like to substitute it for the light Sussex chickens? Christine, hi. Judith, hello. Hi Sarah. Hello Mel. Good. Hi Samantha. Hello Irene. I've just been getting everything ready here. Hello Pam, how are you? Hello. Must have had a little problem with our internet just then. Anyway, we can't expect everything to work all the time. I've got Fifey's phone again, so we should be all right. Howdy, Marianne. Marianne, what did you mean when you said, could I show you about the washers again? Heather, please send me the light Sussex chickens. This is great, thank you. Hello, Louise. I've just been, I went to the bottom of my paper drawer. Hi Ian. Went right to the bottom of my paper drawer and found this paper, which I think, is it Fabriano? No. I can't tell from the watermark, but it's a lot lighter than 350 GSM. But I think this is quite good for flower things. And hello Gillian. And I just thought, we've got a few tulips outside. I know I've done tulips before, but they're not going to be here for much longer. And I thought it might be quite nice just to have an attempt at them again. I had actually thought about landscapes too. Hi Laura, hello Fiona, hello Evelyn, hi Darren. Marianne, I wondered if you could show how to play with the colours and get graduated shade and colour. Anything else you'd like me to show? That's the things you just find out for yourself. You love tulips, great. I can hardly read without my specs on. Right, shall we get cracking? Oh, that's much better. Love tulips. Right, well, I'll put that. I think I'm going to use this lighter paper, but I'm going to chop it in half. Well, less than half. And maybe just do sort of something like this, one here, one here, one here, and one here. Really just for me, for you, studies. Hello, Kathy, how are you? Okay. No, it's not a stupid question, it's just, I'm not sure exactly what you mean. Right, so rather than turn you round, I'll see if I can turn you round. No. I'll show you what I've got in front of me. There's not a real variety of colour. I'm sending you a new badge to wear. I love badges. So I've got these in front of me. Oh, turn round. To refer to. I like to have real things in front of me, and then there's an immediacy. So if you've got a real flower in front of you, then you've got to get on and paint it before it fades, or paint it throughout throughout that process. I happened to have a look at like 1 or 2 other like painting tutorial YouTube things just to see, because Sharuna Sagar, who's the BBC Look North arts correspondent, and she does news as well, she's lovely. Did you tiptoe through these? Yes, I tiptoed through the tulips. Anyway, Sharuna Sagar is a bit of a sort of friend of mine. and she's doing an arts piece on BBC Radio 3 in the morning, and she'd said the other day, I'd love to mention my live painting videos, but she said the main presenter, Sarah Lawler or Sarah Layla or something, has got a bit of a sort of pet artist called Katie Hobkirk or Katie, can't remember her surname, anyway, dreadful. She's got literally tens of thousands of subscribers on YouTube, and I thought, well, you know, she obviously knows what she's doing. Well, she's made up to the nines, loads of nail varnish, and basically she just picked up a painting like this and went, today we are going to paint this seascape, so you'll need this, and this. And she just ploughed through it, and I thought, well, it was quite dreary. It was just like painting painting by numbers. Whereas I would say my style is much more instinctual. And also I think she had like an iPad with a photograph still in front of her. To my mind, that's cheating. I think for me, I like to go out and find my subject, which isn't to say that I don't do photographs as well as drawings and working from life, but I'm afraid I think the idea of finding somebody else's photograph or picture on a screen, sticking it in front of you and copying it, it's really not the way I work. So I like to have live things. The Beeb is taking you on. No, the bloody Beeb isn't taking me on, because she was going to feature me in her roundup of lockdown art, but the main presenter of this music programme has this sort of pet artist, and she wanted to promote her, and in some ways we're quite similar because she does some flowers as well, but anyway, so that didn't happen. Very boring. Right, so for those of you who have not joined me before, I'll quickly give you an idea. Watercolour, everything's pure watercolour. It's either Winsor & Newton Artist Quality Watercolour or AJ Ludlow watercolours, which are almost pure pigment, and I'm sort of moving over to using them after 30 years of just using Winsor & Newton. I use ProArt Proline brushes. I don't think it was Katie Hopkins, it was Katie something else. Hello Eddie Hector, hello Sue Green, you do very well on YouTube. Forget the BBC. No, I want to be on the ruddy BBC. It would have been nice to have had a mention. Not that I really want to go big on things like this. Selling paintings is like my thing. Anyway, my brushes are what I think they call them, like one stroke. They're flat, and I use sizes from, you could do your skirting boards with this one really, or your edges. Love this one, I use it a lot. There's a landscape I've started, and it is all done with this massive big brush, down to some quite small ones for things like eyes. So I like your style, but thank you for running your supplies. So these are all watercolours. Mix the pigment with the water and onto the paper, which I've managed to splash. So I think I'll just crack on. This is called, I think it's called a lily tulip or something. I can't remember the exact name. And when I brought it in, it was pointy, and now it's not. But luckily I've got one that hasn't opened up yet. So I've got a couple of things to work from. And I'll just work my way along this row of tulips and try and find colours that work. Hello James Gibson, how are you? How's the house? Have you finished? James Gibson also likes to paint houses, the outside, with that stuff that keeps the weather off. I need a scrap of paper to do my colour. Oh, maybe I'll use that. Right. Hello, Alan Kemp. Tell them you paint other things, not just flowers. I paint other things, not just flowers. I paint wildlife, hounds, foxes, landscapes, chickens, things. Oh, this is a landscape I did last week. Hares. Another hare. Mostly I do bigger paintings than this, but these were all sort of things I did for you lovely lockdown people, and just sort of plodded through them, really trying to give you ideas about how I do stuff. Emma, is that enough? Emma Ferries, who asked me to show you things I do. That's why they're all teeny tiny, because then it's easier for you to see. No one else does such brilliant chat too. And hounds, yes, I do hounds as well. I did do a demo with like a series of start, halfway through and finish. Right, I'm going to tip you up. Trying to reconnect. There we are. I think, just make sure you can see. There we are. Okay. Fifey reminded me, oh, guess what I did yesterday? Last night, Fifey, he just gave in, he relented. He got the clippers out and said, please, will you just take those hairs off the back of my neck? So I got the clippers out. I said, what do you want, number 1 or number 2 over the top? Do you know, this is literally straight out of the Winsor Red. I try and keep my colours fairly pure and not do a massive amount of fannying on. So I'm just going to move these tulips along a touch so that I can't actually see them. So I clipped him. This is one of the, this brush is probably a bit too big, but never mind. This is a very different paper. So straight in, just do 1 stroke. I use the brush. Completely, exploit the shape of the brush to get what I want. The shape I want. And this would be like the first wash or the first layer of this painting. And what I would ideally do would be to go back when it's bone dry, and continue. It's quite nice. Off the guard, and just literally, because he's now so bald, he's bald as a coot on top, and he has these little spikes that are like antennae, and I'm not really a fan. So I just took them off. And the thing is, you know, there's not really a lot of arguing with somebody who's got clippers and is clipping your head. This is another one, but it's a slightly more blue red. I'm going to do something in a minute while they're still wet. And this is just like having fun with tulips. So it doesn't really matter if I go right to the edge of the page. It's not ever going to end up in a frame. Then we are on to tomato red. So it's going to look terrible alongside. Now this colour, this Ludlow colour, is a little bit closer to the tomato red, I would say, yeah. Just test it there. Okay. Anyway, Fifey did admit that he felt a lot more comfortable with all the sort of bristles up the back of his neck. Years ago, when we sort of first started going out together, he was living in Gloucestershire in a place with a really unlikely name called Macaroni Downs Farm, which, Gillian, you might have heard of it. It's a bit of a legend down there. the place. So he was staying on this farm as a lodger, and the farm, I don't know whether it actually belonged, but anyway, it was farmed by a chap called Martin Squires. And Martin Squires was, and sadly he died, I think it was just last year, absolutely adored Martin. And I remember when I first met him being struck because he had, it seems to, anyway, I have to say, she limbers up, but no stretching. When I met Martin Squires, he had like all these curly grey hairs sprouting out of his collar. That's the only way to... Peter, I'm wondering if you might have some. Yeah, so he had them sprouting up here. And I did say to 5 Feet, you know, you're beginning to look like Martin did back then. Yesterday, I looked back at the video and I noticed that I had my hair in front of the screen quite a lot. So I'll try and avoid that today. I quite like that. I'm going to get a slightly smaller brush for this next bit. I try and use like the biggest brush I can possibly get away with in life generally. And I'm struggling to find the size down. Ah, here we are, it's hiding. Seems to have a lot of black on it. Yeah. Went for a lovely swim yesterday in the river. The sun came out and it suddenly was warm for a little while. So I said, oh, 5 Feet, will you come to the river with me? And he said, yes, shall we go on the trike? We've got this, for those of you, whoops, wrong paint. For those of you who have not joined before, we've got this ridiculous recumbent three-wheeler tandem. But it's quite good because I just sit there and pedal, which is quite easy for me. And get there in no time. I had an absolutely gorgeous swim again. And then had rabbit curry last night. And I'm sorry about those of you who are vegetarians, but so are the rabbits, and they're eating our garden. And so we've got these traps, we've got all the traps out, and we're catching quite a lot of rabbits. And 5 Feet is making rabbit curry, which is absolutely, that's not too bad, which is really, really nice. It's not like camouflaging the rabbit, you just think it's delicious and eat it. So that's what we had for supper last night. Yum. And he does a different recipe every time. Oh, I was gonna, yeah, I'll still do that. I'll just get another brush. This tulip, no, this tulip here has got a tiny little bit of green at the base. They probably all do, but I can see it on that one, so I'm going to, that's not very good. And then I've got a really lovely version of this here. And then I think I've run out of paper. I watched my friend Kate, who grows flowers and things. She does a live video at 8 o'clock. And that was quite good. Lots of potting on and doing cuttings and stuff. That's Northumbrian Flowers. who I do get flowers from her for events and things, which is great. Okay, so I've run out of space. This is something that I do. Blooming typical, which is just as well that this is not supposed to be anything of any importance. What I'm going to do here is put the, I think they're called the anther and the filaments or something, the sexy parts. Because it'll be easier to work around them than the other way around. God, there's some good paintings coming my way from you lot. I'm not kidding. Really, really lovely landscape landed in my messenger yesterday. I'm not going to say who it is because I don't want people to get big-headed. So these, I can't remember which is which. Some of them are anthers and some are filaments, I think. I think this bit in the middle is the lady part, and I think these bits are the gentleman parts with the pollen on. Yeah, so I'd be inclined to leave that for a bit until it was dry and then complete around the edge. I'm going to put the stalks on because I just think it makes sense and I want to. I think then I might just do something else. I do have a terrible, not a terrible eel story, but another eel tale to relate. Years ago when Fifey and I were not when we were first going out, I think we might have actually been married. We were married for 7 years before we lived together as a married couple, which I might have mentioned before. Nobody wants to rush into these things. And he lived in a flat right on the edge of the River Tay in a little place called Newborough in Fife, quite near to Cooper. Not Cooper Angus, Cooper. And this flat was... It was part of a sort of, like a group of, like, not tenements, but they were made for factory workers. And his was on the first floor, and it was right next to the road, which was right next to the River Tay, which is why he bought it. And he bought it because, right, so it's quite important to make sure the stalk lines up with that. So I'd be going like that. That's just common sense. That. I'm just going to. And he had a mooring and he had a boat. He put an old engine into the river so that he could use that as a mooring. And we did quite a bit of sailing. I think he had a Wayfarer or something back then. And when I used to go up and stay, I missed a video chat from Marianne Ray. Is there an issue? I used to live in Cooper 5. You did. Looks like I've got problems with the internet. Please move the paper. When I tip it, it does seem to affect. Can you see? Is that okay? I'll just get some more. Anyway, we used to go out on the boat and not just sailing, but catching fish. And we used to go out with and put eel traps out, which are a bit like rat traps or rabbit traps. And you'd get like an old salmon head from the fishmongers and wait until it really stank. Put it in a sock and put the sock, yes, but not what you're painting now. I can. Not eels again, yes. Are there 3 or 4 tulips? There are 4 on here at the moment. It's quite hard, and I'm not very good at this, obviously. It's quite hard to see conversation. Hang on, if I push this... No, it doesn't work. It's quite hard to see the conversation and what I'm doing. And I'm really not very good at this. And I can't wait for lockdown to finish and then you can just get on with your painting. Oh, this is a nice leaf. So anyway, I remember this one time, we'd set the traps the night before, as I say, put the dead fish in a sock, in the trap, put it down with a brick to weigh it down. And we went back the next day to see what was in. And of course, Fifey was at the helm, and I was, so I'm just trying to follow the lines of these leaves. I was pulling up the eel traps, and I remember I pulled the first eel trap up, and it would be about maybe 2.5 foot long. And as I pulled it out of the water, oh, it was writhing. It was absolutely, it was like a tin of spaghetti. Instead of not spaghetti, it was eels all wriggling around, and they make this noise. They go like that. And it was really horrible. Anyway, I pulled them in. Every trap that we set was full of eels, big ones. And hello, Jules, good of you to join us. I was just relaying a story about one of the things that attracted me to Fifey, because he is a bit of a maverick, really. So anyway, we got all the eels, and then we went back to shore. I'm going to tip you up again. And I just said, well, what are we going to do with them? Well, he had an arrangement with the Chinese takeaway whereby he gave them loads and loads of valuable eels and they gave him a £5. It's like living with Jack and the Ruddy Beanstalk. I'm not kidding. So, and I mean, I said to him, they really, really, really prize eels. You know, you can't get them. And but I think for Fifey, the whole fun of it was just catching them rather than making any money out of them. But so yeah, and I looked through the window while he handed over the eels. He tipped them from a big bucket into a sink, and one of them sort of wriggled quickly out of the sink and onto the floor. And there was this terrific scramble as the Chinese guy who owned the takeaway and Fifey tried to catch it. And of course they are unbelievably slippery and slimy. So that's like a start. I wouldn't really want to do too much more right now while it's so wet. This paper is quite nice. While we are, sorry about that. Oh, best I've heard all day. Do you paint eels? I don't paint eels. I really do like them. Where's that painting I was going to do a bit too? Look, while we're just waiting, while I'm thinking, I ordered myself a new iPad case. I have got a full-size iPad, and somehow my suppliers have sent me a mini iPad case, which is really, really nice. And Fifey does use a mini iPad, but I've already got him a nice new case. So does nobody want to buy a mini iPad case? Look at the lovely, lovely cockerels on it. Normally they're, I don't know how much they are, they're either 35 or 40 pounds, but I'll definitely do a deal on that because I'll just be stuck with it otherwise. Send me a message if you want. I would quite like to finish pheasant. I'm going to put that down while I've got green and I've got my big brush. So I'll just tip you up. Do you paint eels? Anyway, to those of you who have gone on to the website, to the YouTubeness, thank you very much. Please go to the YouTube and subscribe to my, what do you call it? Channel, that's it. So I'm really looking for a slightly bluer green to put in the background here. I shouldn't really do this. I think even bluer. Please don't do this at home, folks, like mix straight into your porcelain palette-y thing. Shouldn't really do this. But then I will use that paint. Can you hear that naughty dog yapping away in the background? That'll be Marv, who is still not gaining any weight, which is a bit disappointing. He's the dog that was diagnosed with diabetes a couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and he's now on 4 units of insulin a day, and I think we're going to have to take him back to the vet, and they can measure his glucose or whatever it is, and hopefully come up with another idea. Maybe having insulin twice a day, I don't know. Have we got any vets out there? See, starting to completely fill in the background is working quite nicely. And again, you've got the blue next to the ginger is a really, really lovely thing. It just does something, I think. Is it working? Holly Waff! Oh, we can't get eels here. I guess they just live in the Sargasso Sea and then float up to you lot. Beth, eels are, I think they're an endangered species right now. There used to be loads and loads, but they've been overfished. And there's a word for like buckets full of baby eels, elvers I think they're called. And again, they are a delicacy in certain communities, and it's led to them being really, really seriously badly overfished, and which suits me because there's one thing I do not like when I go fishing, and that is to get an eel on the end of my rod. And on more than one occasion I've had to drive home with the last 2 or 3 feet of my rod sticking out of the window with an eel dangling off the end because I can't bring myself to untangle them. That, which is what they do when an eel gets on your rod. This would be on a maybe on a worm. I think it'd be on a worm. Yeah, I don't think they would go for a spinner or anything. They sort of wrap themselves, they coil themselves round the fishing line in a very disgusting fashion. I think that is all my eel tails gone, used up. We could move on to mole stories. I've had some quite interesting, I've painted moles before, they're lovely, lovely. I did a print called Velvet Gentleman, which I really enjoyed doing, because, how did I come across this mole? I mean, we've got moles in the garden, they drive us berserk. But the thing is, around here, people know that I paint animals, and they also know that the prize for bringing me an animal that turns into a successful painting may well be an actual painting. And I have, given people paintings of the creature that they have brought me. So one night, we're sitting at home, Fifey and I don't know whether we'd finished eating or whatever, it'd be about 9 o'clock, and there's a bang on the door, and we've got a porch, so there's the kitchen door, and then there's a porch, and then there's another door. So John Scott from next door, the farmer, is standing with a really, really triumphant look on his face. And a Wellington boot in each hand. And I went, yeah, and I thought, what on earth's gone wrong? Why is he here at this time of night? And he said, shut the door. And he meant the door behind him. And then he said, and shut that door, so that we would be like in the enclosed bit. And then he just looked at me. I just hope it doesn't cut out when I do this. So he looked at me, he had a welly in each foot, and he just went, tipped them up. And 3 moles fell out. 2 out of one and 3 out of the other. Well, that's 5 altogether. 2 of them were completely dead. 1 of them was nearly dead. 1 of them didn't have long to live, and the other one was really, really fully alive. And it was running round and round and round. And he said, there, you can paint them. And that's fairly typical. And the mole catcher, who, I can't remember his name, I think he's called Alan, slightly old, or something, Gudrun. Anyway, he used to catch our moles at the same time as he caught next doors. And I remember one time, he always liked to prove that he'd caught them. So there was this one time I was going out somewhere really sort of smart in the evening, all dressed up in my finery, and in the dark, it was winter. And I went to the car, put my hand on the door handle, and my hand just met something that you wouldn't expect to meet on a door handle. And it was a dead mole, just to prove that he'd caught it. It's like, why would you do that? And then another time I'd gone along to the farm next door to do something, and when I got back into my car, there were 2 dead moles on the dashboard, and that was the one with the Welly's son Jimmy. He did that, which is quite fast. I could then paint them. I'd rather have a live one, but do you know what? I think you've had your blooming half an hour. It's still quite nice just finishing it off. It's quite, just simple, and you've seen each stage of it. Big brush, methodical. Yorkshire accent. No, that wasn't Yorkshire, that was Northumbrian. Oh, Sandy, hello, how are you? There's a dead cow. Ian Gibbons. Oh, thank you, Ian. That's so kind of you. You're a latter-day Beatrice. Due to poor wireless connection, your broadcast has been... the colours on your test paper look like rhubarb. Yeah, I love... Sometimes, when I produce a catalogue sometimes to go with like an exhibition, I have taken photographs of things like this and this, which I find quite intriguing. There's some quite nice stuff going on there. Anyway, look at the time. I've got stuff to do. I've got that big painting to crack on with, and maybe do a bit more to the tulips, because they're just, as I'm talking, they're opening, and I've got the fire on. Anyway, thank you very much for joining me. I was going to ask you something. Oh yeah, I'm going to make a group on Facebook, and I'm going to try and remember to add you all to it. And then And I'll put some of the pictures that you sent me. I won't put names next to them. You can tag yourselves in them. But I just know that if I was you, I would really quite like to join it and stuff. So, and I think I'll either make a group within Marianne Rogers Gallery Facebook page or Marianne Rogers Facebook page, call it the Lockdown Gang, and invite you to join it. Okie doke. Bye.